The night it happened, the sky over Briarwood was heavy and low, the kind of night where even the street lamps seemed to hum slower. My father, Elijah Hayes, was sitting at a red light in his old Buick, both hands resting on the wheel like always. He wasn't in a rush. He'd worked a double shift at the plant, and I could picture him just breathing for a second, letting the world catch up. That light turned green, and before he even touched the grease, a voice cut through the quiet, sharp, angry, "Move the damn car." A patrol car rolled up beside him, and there he was, Officer Trent Malloy, face twisted like my father's very existence was some kind of offense. Dad eased forward, calm, trying to keep things from escalating. But Malloy, he didn't wait. He didn't warn. One flick of his wrist and the gun was up. The shot shattered the glass and the night in the same breath. By the time I pulled up to that intersection, the Buick was crooked against the curb, the horn blaring and one long cry glass glittering on the asphalt. I knew that shape in the driver's seat before my brain even caught up. "Dad," I yelled, shoving through the crowd, but a uniformed arm blocked me hard. Malloy stood there, gun still, out his face flat like it was just another box he'd checked. "What did you do?" I asked him. My voice came out low, but it cut through the chatter. He didn't answer, didn't even blink. And in that moment, something inside me shifted, clicked into place like a lock turning. I didn't know what I was going to do yet, but I knew I wasn't going to let this slide into the pile of unfortunate incidents that nobody ever answers for. The next morning, the news said Dad failed to comply and made a threatening movement. They used a mugshot from some old minor traffic thing instead of the picture of him holding his grandbaby. By nightfall, the DA had already said there wasn't enough evidence for charges. I watched my stepmom, Darlene, stand at the kitchen counter, hands trembling as she folded the flag from the funeral. She didn't cry, not in front of me. "They were never going to charge him," she said, and her voice was so steady it almost broke me. So I started paying attention, not to what they said, but to what they didn't think I'd notice. Malloy's patterns were easy to find, where he patrolled the diner, where he drank coffee, late the supermarket, where he picked up beer every Thursday night. That's where I saw at the far corner of the lot, just under a busted street lamp that flickered every few seconds. A perfect pocket of shadow, like the universe had drawn a circle around the place and dared me to step in. I went to the hardware store 2 towns over, found a 26-inch steel pipe cold and heavy in my hand, wrapped the grip in black tape that night, the sound of it tearing sharp in the silence. I didn't think about speeches or confrontations. This wasn't about yelling or proving a point. This was about balance, about putting something back where it belonged. Thursday came. The air was damp from an afternoon storm. I parked far from the store, engine ticking as it cooled. Through the wide windows, I watched Malloy laugh with the cashier, that easy swagger of a man who thought he owned the ground he walked on. When he pushed his cart toward that dark corner, I unzipped my duffel. My hand found the tape-wrapped handle. The lot was almost empty, just the hum of the lights and the faint slap of his boots on wet pavement. He was at his car door when the lamp flickered out, one heartbeat of perfect darkness. My feet moved without sound, each step erasing the space between us. I saw the back of his head tilt slightly, keys jangling in his hand. He started to turn. The pipe came up in a smooth arc, and the sound when it hit, it wasn't loud, not like in the movies. But it was final. Malloy dropped instantly, the bag of groceries splitting open, beer hissing across the asphalt, mixing with the dark pool spreading under him. I didn't run. I didn't look around. I let the pipe fall from my hands, the clatter echoing longer than it should have, then walked back to my car. When I drove past the intersection where Dad had died, the light was green. I didn't stop. The news the next morning called him a decorated officer assaulted off duty. By the end of the week, he was dead. They dug up every nice thing anyone had ever said about him, left out the complaints buried in dusty file cabinets. But people in the neighborhood, they remembered. Old stories started coming out online. Folks who'd been roughed up, humiliated, threatened. At first it was whispers, then it was names, dates, patterns. The department tried to bury it, but the pressure built until they released his disciplinary file. Pages of unsubstantiated and resolved without action. One night, Darlene spoke at the church. She didn't raise her voice. My husband was more than a statistic, she said. He deserved to come home. The applause was steady, not wild, but it carried weight. A memorial grew at the intersection. Candles, flowers, a cardboard sign in thick black marker. No more names. I went at night, stood across the street, watched strangers bow their heads for a man they'd never met. Months passed, no charges, no detectives knocking again. The pipe was never found. Life started to stitch itself into a new pattern. Coffee in the morning, yard work in the afternoon, quiet dinners with Darlene. The mural of Dad's face went up that summer, painted in warm colors that seemed to hold the light in the evening. I'd pass by and stop sometimes, not because I needed to, but because I wanted to. On the 1-year mark, I walked there alone. The memorial was smaller now, just a single candle in a glass jar and a note held down by a stone. It said, "We remember." I touched the edge of the paper, looked up at his smile on the wall and said, "It's done, Pop." The wind carried it away like it had somewhere to go. I stood there a while longer, letting the quiet settle in my chest before heading home. Darlene was on the porch with 2 mugs of tea when I got back. She didn't ask where I'd been. She just handed me mine and said he'd be proud. I didn't answer, just looked out at the street, the lamplight pooling in the road, and thought about how peace never lasts forever, but sometimes it lasts long enough. So now I'll ask you, was I wrong? When the system shuts its eyes, when justice looks the other way, what's a man supposed to do? You tell me, because I've heard a lot of talk about law and order, but I've lived long enough to know sometimes you've got to make your own balance. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Tell me if you think this was justice or just another wrong wearing different clothes. And if you've seen something like this, if you've lived through it, share it. Because the more we talk, the harder it is for anyone to pretend they didn't know.